Hello and welcome to everyone across the nation joining today's workshop on how to administer tests. This workshop focuses on using CASAS tests online to deliver CASAS web-based tests to any type of student, new, current, and returning, using different test series, form levels, and modalities. It is a certified proctor who performs these steps in combination with managing sessions. So those of you who are returning from the earlier workshop on managing sessions, this workshop will help you begin to put the pieces together for an even flow of delivering a CASAS web-based assessment. Now, folks, as a reminder, this is one of 23 complimentary CASAS Online implementation workshops. We don't expect you to attend all 23. However, we highly recommend attending as many as possible to learn about best practices, ask questions, and to become confident in using the online system. This is simply a training room set up to conduct all 23 workshops. Online help documentation is available on our website under Training and Support, ET for eTests help documentation, and TE for TOPS Pro Enterprise help documentation. TOPS Pro Enterprise Online is the data management application for which you will have access to if you are using CASAS eTests online. Now, you will want to be sure and bookmark these as your electronic go-to resources because we add new information, frequently add new information as well as update existing information. And you will definitely want to bookmark the CASAS eTests online guide as this guide provides the information covered in these workshops. This is a copy of the guide right here. We update this guide annually as we prepare for the National Summer Institute. I would like to extend an invitation to all of you to the 2015 National Summer Institute. We have information here on our website, and you can go ahead and register ahead of time, see a listing of the scheduled events. We hold hands-on labs for both TOPS Pro Enterprise as well as CASAS eTest Online. It's a wonderful opportunity to network with individuals across the nation. I thoroughly enjoyed coming to Summer Institute. When I worked in the field, that was my booster annually. I just looked forward to that. Now, before we get started, folks, I want to be sure and point out where you will find access to CASAS eTest Online as well as TOPS Pro Enterprise Online. The main domain name is etestsonline.org. This is a secure website maintained by a CASAS hosted server. Access to TOPS Pro Enterprise Online can be accessed directly from this link, TE Client. Anything that has to do with CASAS eTest Online is front and center in this screen. Folks, I'm going to pause for just a moment and take a drink of water. One moment, please. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you. We also offer a simulation server for you to experiment and explore our online system without risk of compromising live data. You will find information on accessing the simulation server from the CASAS website under Training and Support, eTest Help Documentation, the Getting Started topic. This is the area where you will want to be as you are all going through the Getting Started process. Here is this is the link to the simulation server, and then also, as I mentioned in an earlier workshop, you will want to check where you are in your progress of going live by this accessing this going live checklist. This will help you stay on task. Okay. Now, for today's workshop, we're going to use the simulation server. As mentioned in earlier workshops, this is a fictional database that we use. The database refreshes nightly, so if you register your machines one day, those machines will not still be registered the next day, just as an FYI. As well as if you create sessions, they will not be there the next day, and so forth. Okay, so with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Folks, I encourage you to ask questions along the way. Please don't be shy and don't hesitate. You will not be interrupting me. I routinely monitor the chat box, so please go ahead and feel free to ask questions along the way by entering those questions in the chat box there. If you are equipped with a microphone, whether you have a headset with microphone or your computer, most likely a laptop, those are usually equipped already with microphones. Please feel free to project your voice into the meeting room. I'd love to engage in conversation with you as a way to address your questions at the time that you are thinking about them, and those questions may very well be the same type of questions others are wanting to ask or thinking about, so it gives me the opportunity to clarify information and to expound upon, to bring greater clarification to what I'm sharing, or to repeat steps, or whatever the case may be. Okay, so you don't worry, you will not be interrupting me. Okay, now today's workshop will cover section. Let's see. I have section 4. In the chat box, I put section 4.1. Forgive me, that is a mistake. It's really section 4. And let me go to section 4 here. Section 4 really is a proctor guide. So we are going to be working on creating a standalone document called Proctor Duties, as well as Coordinator Duties. But right now this is contained in the guide, section 4 under Proctor Duties. In the previous workshop we went through managing sessions. I touched on a few managing session guidelines, and now we're going to cover administering tests as well as reporting test irregularities. Okay, so let's go directly to administering tests. Now, administering CASAS web-based tests does require the same testing code of ethics, adherence to test security, and proctoring tasks as if you are administering paper-based assessments. So please be mindful of those same types of aspects, regardless of what type of delivery. There are subtle differences in administering a CASAS web-based test, and that's why we have offered the complimentary online self-paced training modules to help you understand specifically what it entails to be a proctor using CASAS tests online, or proctoring CASAS web-based assessments. Those modules, folks, for your information, the coordinator and proctor certification modules do not cover the functionality of the application itself. They are simply designed to impart the testing code of ethics and duties and responsibilities as they apply to each role. Okay, so you will want to be sure and to conduct in-house staff training once your staff is trained, or even before staff are trained. You are welcome to use the simulation server to get staff members up to speed with the functions for which they are assigned to perform. Okay, let's see, let's go back to the guide here. So we do recommend doing a dry run of the testing environment. So once you have testing stations registered, we encourage you to use the simulation server, test drive the application as a dry run of the testing environment to make sure that your systems are compatible with the online application, that your facility verification, meaning that the testing environment meets the recommended conditions of a testing room, and preparing your staff for administering tests. Okay. Now, test administration can only take place on a machine that is registered. Proctors must first start a session, add stations, before test administration can begin on a testing station. Okay, so we're going to divert from this document and go over to the simulation server and simulate now again what it is a proctor is expected to do. So say we're going to role play here. So say this is testing day. The proctor comes into the testing room, and it is ideal to provide the proctor with their own machine at which they will monitor and manage testing throughout the test event. So the proctor would start the computer, go to the main domain URL, in this case though we're using the simulation server, sign in as the proctor. This is the management console. From the application management screen, the proctor would then go to testing sessions. If the proctor is assigned to a specific site and or program or type of assessment, let's say that the proctor is simply at North Campus and they are proctoring, let's say that they are proctoring intake for the ABE program. They can filter the list of sessions and greatly reduce the number of sessions listing to simplify it so that the proctor is less likely to click into a session that is not appropriate for them or that they are assigned to proctor. If the proctor is, say, going to conduct, and you can do the same for post-testing, or let's say that they are simply at the North Campus and you want only sessions that are available at the North Campus to display. Proctors can literally conduct intake at the same time they're post-testing, at the same time students can be taking practice tests, at the same time students are simply going through the registration process, in other words, the data collection screens, and then allowing them the opportunity to practice if they so choose. By the way, folks, we will have a registering students session next Tuesday on the 24th, and it is that session that I will go into detail about the data collection screens and using our online system as a registration system. Okay. Students can also be retested in the same day, or returning students who have been absent from instruction for a specified period of time, to where your local or state assessment policy requires you to reappraise the student to determine an appropriate level test at the time of return. We have a set of sessions here for ABE. We also have like sessions for ESL. So the point being is that when the proctor signs in, they bring up the list of testing sessions. They have all of these advanced filtering capabilities to display a list of sessions for which they are assigned to proctor. Now I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to start this post-test session, acknowledge my duties and responsibilities, and recognize that I am required to stay present in the room during the entire testing event. So I'll select my max supervisory hours and start the post-testing session. I'll add, actually I want to hold off for just a moment on that. Let me also go back. And I'm going to start, this is a non-conventional session, but I've created that one just for demonstration purposes here. Okay. So the proctor can go through this process that you see me going through and literally start all sessions that are available in their location, if that is your practice. Now we work with some organizations who keep intake separate from post-testing. Some organizations keep testing of programs separate as well. In other words, they do not commingle students in ABE programs with students testing for ESL. Okay, so you have a lot of options and a lot of flexibility to consider what will work best for you. Now, so notice here I have several active sessions going, and I'll just leave these other sessions inactive until I may need to use them at any point in time in that scheduled testing room. Okay? Now, generally, the next step is for the, well, let's say, I'm sorry, I don't mean to confuse anyone. Let's say the proctor starts all the sessions, or all sessions that are available to them. Okay, so now the proctor goes about the testing room to the actual testing station. They click Administer Test. They run the executable file. Now, we spoke about this in earlier workshops. This is required. The executable file must be run to make connection with the online hosted server to confirm whether or not this is a machine authorized and registered to deliver a CASAS web-based assessment. When the server sees that this in fact is a registered station, the testing station will display this screen. It identifies the server in which this machine is registered on, which in this case is at the Rolling Hills Simulation Server. The site is at North Campus in the assessment lab, and this is station number 1. This is the current date and time. Okay. The refresh screen displays as a test security measure so that students do not inadvertently click and begin taking a test in a non-proctored environment, or click and go into a test that they have not been directed to go into. Okay, so the refresh button, I can click refresh as many times as I want, but this, no matter how many times I do, this will not open up to to proceed with test administration. So this is a safeguard. So the proctor goes around the room to ready all of the stations and leave them in this particular state. Okay? Now, folks, if by chance, and I'm pointing up here to the upper right, station management, if by chance you go to a testing station or a station that you believe is a registered testing station and click Administer Test and run the executable file, if you happen to get a screen that looks like this, Station Management Login, that means that the machine is not registered on the CASAS hosted server. Now, you may be in an organization to where you have an IT department that may swap out computers and not notify you, so they may have put a newer computer in place, and that machine isn't registered. That's one example. If you have, and this occurs with most often with laptops. If you plan to have a mobile laptop lab, if the laptops are part of a wired network, then there is a registration that needs to occur under that wired connection. If you use those laptops on a wireless network connection, or use a wireless card at an offsite, the station must be registered again. Even though it's the same machine, it must be registered again under that wireless connection. So you have a wired connection registration as well as a wireless network connection or registration. Okay, so just to let you know, and FYI, if you get presented with this when you click Administer Test, that means that the station is not registered. Okay, now I'm going to toggle back to the testing station right here. Okay, now this is refresh. So let's go back for just a moment here. We're role playing here. The proctor signed in, they started multiple sessions, they've prepared all of the machines as you see right here. So now the proctor is waiting for students to arrive to determine who they are. If they are a brand new student, they'll view the appropriate session and add the station and begin testing the student. For simulation purposes, I'm going to view the post-testing session. Give me one moment here. And I'm going to add this station to this session. To activate testing, on this station. And now I click the refresh button, and now this opens up to an ID input field. Now if I enter an ID, now keep in mind this is a post-test session, and the recommendation is on post-test sessions to lock the creation of new student records. This is for your safeguard to avoid duplicated student records and duplicated testing. So the ID that I entered is not recognized in the online system, and this session will not allow new student records to be added. Okay, and that's intentional by design. Okay, let me show you another example here for just a moment. I'm going to remove the station from this active session, go to a different session, and add the same station, to that session. And because I activated, removed, and reactivated the station, it's going to give a momentary blip when I attempt to continue, giving you the indication that there has been some interruption. So I have to restart the application here. The application will now see that the station is added to a different session. If I enter this particular ID, this is an example of a session that, whoops, well, I wonder if I inadvertently added it to only specified students. What I was trying to demonstrate, and I'll just let you know, folks. Oh, okay, I see here. Allow only specified students. Let me, actually, I'm going to manage this and stop it. You have the option, folks, to, oops, proctors can't do that. Okay, well, I'm going to leave that alone for sake of time, folks. What I was trying to demonstrate is that you can create sessions for only specified students, and that would be an example if you have students for which you want to override what the system automatically has assigned as their next test. Remember that this is a fully automated system. It will determine an appropriate level pretest. Based on those pretest scores, it will automatically set the next assigned test for post-testing and continue thereafter. But you have the option at any time to override what the system assigned as the next test, and we call that an ONAT, O-N-A-T, override next assigned test. So you can create a separate session and specify the students in that session. Whoops, here, I'm going to sign on here for just a moment. A coordinator is the only one who has the ability to create and edit sessions. So I'm going to sign on as also a coordinator here. So for this particular session, I can specify students by setting a student configuration here. Now what I needed to do on this is not lock the creation of new student records, but just simply allow only specified students. I think that will suffice here. Let's go back to the Proctor and start that session. Let's see if I can save this demonstration here. Oops, okay, well, something is not behaving in the way I expected it, so I'm going to just end that demonstration. But trust me, folks, only specified students generally would be allowed in that session. I'm going to go ahead and manage and stop that. I'm going to go back to this post-test session and then proceed with administering the test. So, stepping back for a moment, the proctor signs in, starts any and all sessions that they plan to proctor, add stations. They can add them on an ad hoc basis as needed, or add stations ahead of time before students arrive. Okay. The student enters their ID. The system will recognize a pre-existing student. The student, because the updating option is available for the student, it includes the name. I'm not so sure that that's a good idea, so I'll bring that back to the online program manager. But the idea here is that if you also have data collection screens available, then the student will be prompted with data collection screens to update. So the update option is enabled, giving the student the opportunity to update any of this type of information here. I'm just answering quickly. And folks, we have a session next week on registration that I will talk in detail about these data collection screens here. So I apologize for going through this quickly. I happened to pick a student that was missing that information, or giving the student the opportunity to update. There's an update link at the upper right, as you saw me click on. So that is enabled by default, and if you don't want students to have the ability to update their screens, then you would want to turn off that feature. I'm going to go quickly into a reading locator. Now, folks, back at the guide, okay, sorry about that, folks. Let me go back here. All right, let's see. Okay, I'm a coordinator here. Let me, let's go down here for just a moment. Let's, folks, I apologize for this snafu. I thought this was all set up and ready for us. Okay, actually I can go back and use that one then. No, actually. Okay, let's go back to this one here. Okay, let me add the station on this one. What I did, folks, is I had to remove the secure browser, because if you saw momentarily, you were unable to view my screen, and that's because of the secure browser. It saw this Citrix Online system as a threat to test security, so I had to disable the secure browser in order to demonstrate to you here. Okay, now we can move forward. Let me go into the reading locator. And folks, in the guide beginning on page 75 talks about the locator, that locators are available for reading and math as well as listening. Now, the reading and math locators are computer adaptive. We do recommend putting the I don't know button on the locator as a way for students to skip without applying a response, because if you notice, if I try to skip without applying a response, the test taker is required to select one answer. And if they do not know the answer, now this right here is a placeholder, the display, which would otherwise be the test display here on the left, and the stem, that would be the question that would otherwise appear here. And then the actual options, the answer choices, okay, so that's the display, the stem, and the options. They are suppressed to protect test security, okay. So in the real test, of course, the actual test items will display, but this is a simulation server so that test security is not compromised. Okay, so selecting one answer, that's why you have the I don't know to allow the test taker to proceed. Okay, and again, here's a retractable toolbar giving the test taker the opportunity to increase or decrease their screen display. Identifies the student, their name, and the remaining time. The student can always unpin these retractable toolbars as they progress through the assessment. Okay, so I'm going to go through this quickly. The student can either click with their mouse anywhere along the answer bar. They can use the A, B, C, D keys and click the space bar to, or the enter key to go to the next question. They can also use the up and down arrows on their keyboard and the space bar to check, and the enter key to go to the next question. So I'm going to go through this quickly because I've kind of run out of time, and I apologize for that, folks. The locator, there is no review screen, folks, on the locator. The locator determines an appropriate level pretest. That information is presented to the test taker to know how many test items they'll be presented with, basic directions here. They click the next button, and here again, we have the toolbar pinned by default. Again, the test taker can increase the screen display, choose on the answers. Those are practice items, tells the test taker whether they got the answer correct or incorrect. They have 2 attempts to answer correctly, and then the application will tell them what the correct answer is. Now that's only on the practice items. Now folks, I'm going to go through this rather quickly to finish up this workshop. Again, I apologize. I hope you can stay just about five more minutes. Stay with me here. I'm clicking rapidly here. Now I'm going to notice that after the test taker gets past item 1, that the back arrow displays. So the test taker has all the abilities that they would otherwise have if they were taking a paper-based test. They can skip test items. They can return test items, okay? So the same holds true in the online system. Now let me pop over real quick to what the test taker, or what the proctor sees on their screen. Coming back here now to the proctor station, under the session activity window, you see that station 1 is active. This is the logged on student taking Form 81R. This is the date, how many questions this student has answered, how much time remains for this student, their last activity, and so forth. Now, this is a great way for proctors to monitor how students are progressing through the test event. If students, and if you keep it, the general rule of a minute per test item, then you can see students who, obviously, like me, are progressing too rapidly through the assessment. And the proctor then can approach that test taker and encourage that test taker to slow down. Now, likewise holds true that if a test taker has only answered 1 or 2 items and 10 or 20 minutes have passed, perhaps that student is in fact struggling. And so now here again, the proctor can approach that student and see if there is any problems. The proctor does have the option to abort that assessment, and we will go through interrupting a test in progress in tomorrow's workshops. Here again, if I refresh my screen, this now shows, it refreshes the time and the questions and so forth. So this is a great way for test takers, in addition to quietly circulating around the room, to monitor test taking progress. So I'm almost to the end here, folks, and we're almost to the end of our session. I just want to quickly get to the end of the screen here to show you. This is the last test item. On all standardized assessments, reading and math, not listening though, test takers are presented with a review screen to where they can return to any test item that they opted to skip. Should time remain, they can go back, review that test item. They can decide at that time whether or not they want to answer that item. They can navigate backwards and forwards through the entire assessment again, or return right back to the review screen. They can also return back to test items that they did in fact apply a response to and change their responses if they so choose. Okay? Once they are satisfied with their review, then they can end the test. Now the next screen that appears is totally optional to you. Now by default, the personal score report will display as seen on this screen. It displays with the student ID, the student name, the form number. This is a level A reading form. The scale score is 173 on this date. This is the CASAS scale and the scale score descriptor. And so all of the elements that you see on this screen are optional. If you want the personal score report to display, but say you don't want the scale descriptor to display, you can disable that. Okay, if you want the report to display but not allow students to print, you can do that as well, because when the students click print, that brings up the print driver installed on that local machine, and then the students would need to also be directed to click print from that screen. And students are known to click print several times, and before you know, they have 2, 3, 4, 5 copies of their personal score report. But these reports are helpful. You can pre-print paper stock to where these reports print out on one side, and then on the other side have pre-printed the complete scale score descriptors for an ESL or ABE program. That's very helpful. Or program placement. The student can, with a map to the school, that's what we did when I worked in the field. So that way we can show the student, this is your score, flip the paper over, show them the classroom in which they were directed to be enrolled. Okay. Now you have the option to not include the print button but still display this personal score report. And then finally you have the option to not display this screen at all. And if that's your choice, then the student would be presented from the review screen simply with the end test, and when they clicked end test, the next screen that would display is this screen right here, test menu. And so the modality of the test form that the student just took is disabled, then making it easier for the proctor and the student to know what their next test should be. Now, it's recommended to alternate test modalities between students. As I mentioned earlier, I would not start 2 students on a reading test seated next to each other. If both students are scheduled to take both modalities, I would start one student on reading and say the next student on math, or the next student in listening. Alternate those modalities to minimize talking, minimize sharing of answers, and so forth. Okay? Once the student takes all tests that are available to them on the test menu, then when the student is returned again to this screen, it then displays goodbye and log out. Now because I have listening test here, I'm not going to go into this and demonstrate this to get to that screen because we actually are out of time. And again, my apologies for my slight snafu earlier in demonstration. But the screen does say log out. And then basically once the student logs out, the screen looks like this. And now this station is ready for the next student to come in and test. Now the proctor does need to be mindful here again back at the session activity window. When I click refresh here, notice now that there are no longer any students logged in here. However, this station is still associated with a post-test session for ESL. if this station is needed for, say, post-testing in an ABE or whatever session, the proctor can remove the station as long as it's not active, and they can keep this session active in case another ESL student comes along and needs to test. But they can add that station to any active session. Let's say they have a new student coming in needing to take an ABE, Reading and Math Locator. They can simply view that session and add that very same station to that session. It's how the session is configured that dictates what and how tests are delivered to the students. The station is just a machine taking direction from the application. Okay, folks, that pretty well ends today's workshop. Let me just skip here. This on page, let's see, this is page 75. This talks in greater detail to explain what a locator is, the difference between reading and math locators and listening locators. And this will also tell you the difference between locators and appraisals. Okay, and then let's see, pre-test or post-progress test, here's the standard test administration time. Listening tests, the timer is still set for 60 minutes. However, students can finish listening tests sooner, as well as reading and math tests, and listening tests are auto advanced. There is applying item responses. I quickly touched on those in the different ways to apply an answer, change an answer, go to the next item, go back to previous items, or how to skip items. So I would review that. Here's a snapshot of the retractable toolbar with all of the optional settings that you can include or not include in that retractable toolbar. Okay. Here's just a refresher on the review screen as well as the personal score report. And that just gets me right here to testing irregularities. And I just want to end the session, and again, my apologies for keeping you over time. I do sincerely appreciate your time to stay with me here. It is the proctor's responsibility to report any type of testing irregularity to the site coordinator, okay? And there is a, let's see where, I thought I had the link on that. Here we go. Reporting a testing irregularity, TIR. We have this available on our website. That when a testing irregularity cannot be resolved at the local agency, then we do request that you submit a TIR within the same day or the next day at the very latest to CASAS so that we can investigate. And here are specific directions on how to use this fillable PDF, save the information, and then email that directly to tech support. Now, the reason that the proctors are required to report irregularities to the site-based coordinator is because it is the site-based coordinator who can determine whether or not an irregularity in fact occurred, and it's possible that that site-based coordinator could remedy that irregularity at the site itself. Let's go back here for just a moment. And examples of testing irregularities are here, such as administering a test to the wrong test taker. Well, that generally is something that can be resolved at the local agency. Suspected cheating, illness during testing to where that test had to be interrupted and the site-based coordinator notified that the student will return. Sudden or urgent unexpected occurrence such as a fire drill, earthquake, or whatever the case may be. Any occurrence that requires interrupting a test in progress, and we'll talk about these methods for interrupting a test in progress in tomorrow's workshops. Computer malfunction. These are internet connectivity issues. These actually, folks, are examples of irregularities that can generally be resolved at the local agency. But occasionally you may come across some type of irregularity with the application, the performance of the application. And that's what we want to know, and we need to know the very day or the next day at the very latest, because there are such a tremendous amount of logs generated daily across the nation that it would be like, trying to find a needle in a haystack. So when we know who the logged on user is, and we know the site location, we know the testing station at which that irregularity occurred, the session name under which that irregularity occurred, as well as identifying your agency, that's the information that we need to move forward to investigate in that irregularity. And when agencies report this information to it, it has been so extremely helpful for us to fix bugs that we may not have been aware of. Okay, so folks, I've presented quite a lot of information to you today in this workshop as well as the earlier workshop. So I would encourage you to review Section 4 in the CASAS Test Online Guide. And everything that I covered today is essentially in Section 4 under Proctor Duties. Are there any questions at this point that I can address before we adjourn? Okay, I take it that that you're all spellbound right now. When you start role-playing all of these processes and steps, I know that will naturally then present questions. And so keep in touch with us. Don't be shy. Let us support you through the implementation process. Let's see, and Gladys, you said, is the student ID a national number or is it local? That depends, Gladys. That depends on your organization or within your state. As far as CASAS is concerned, IDs can be made up in any type of fashion, numeric, alphanumeric. But if you are if you are an agency or an organization that is part of a larger organization that is likely to share data like student test results with other organizations, or say you are affiliated with organizations where a student may start at your program and may transfer to another program doing likewise, and you need to share that student's information and the prior test information with that organization. That may be an example where using the same type of IDs to identify the students will be helpful. Okay. All right. You're welcome, Gladys. Okay, folks, I'm going to end today's workshop. Thank you again. I sincerely appreciate your time, and we look forward to you in supporting you through the implementation progress. Have a great day. Thank you.